We're skipping the break. We're going straight to the next speaker. I think she's known to most of you. She writes a Sunday column for the Philippine Daily Inquirer. She's a producer of the New York Festival's award-winning documentary on ANC Storyline, and she's a writer at large for Esquire magazine. Please all welcome Ms. Patricia Evangelista.
Hello. Geez, are you guys asleep? Hello? All right. Hi, I'm Pat Evangelista, and I'm part of your generation. I'm 26. I'm a graduate of the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and I understand how it feels when people tell you that your generation is the hope of the nation. Because it feels so easy for the next generation to pass on the responsibility for the future to us, as if they're not part of that future. But let me tell you something. We'll take up their slack and move them towards where they should have gone a long time ago. But let me tell you a story, because that's why I'm here. I'm here to tell you stories. I'm not here to talk much about multimedia, because that's what they're there for. I'm here as a storyteller, as a writer. I'm not sure if Ms. Glenda said so, but I'm a multimedia reporter for MovePH. That means that I write, I shoot, I edit, I score, I mix coffee, I negotiate with generals, I drop terabytes. Essentially, you do everything. If they let me drive a motorcycle, I would be very happy, but my bosses aren't allowing me yet. Eventually. But what you do as a reporter, beyond all the technicals and beyond shooting, beyond the art, is tell the story. And that's a dangerous thing, because every time you tell a story, you hazard yourself. You put yourself before people, and you say, this is what you should hear. This is what you should understand. They say that writers are secret bullies, that no matter how much you hide it with prepositions and metaphors and cliches, what really happens is that you're pushing people to believe what you want to say. And that's what I want you to hear today. I don't want you to believe what I'm saying, but I want you to be able to say something. Katie?
Be popular.
Wrong clip, wrong clip, wrong clip.
To work, to lead, to protect and preserve our country, our people. That is why I became president.
The dead of the regime of Gloria Macapagal Arroyo totals almost 2,000, all lost to extrajudicial killings. According to Karapatan, peasants, Moros, human rights workers, government employees, lawyers, and scores of journalists were slaughtered with impunity.
This is part of a documentary produced a year ago. It's called 58. It puts together a number of human rights abuses, and especially 58, the 58 people who were massacred in Maguindanao. I'd like to tell you a story about a country. They call it the Pearl of the Orient, cradle of the brave. Those islands caught between sea and sky and bright blazing sun. And in this country, a lot of people die. That's what happens when people aren't moved, when they don't have the imagination to see what's happening to other people. In Ondoy, we lost over 464 people. And then we had a news report the other day saying only 35 people died in Pedring. Only 35. 35 people. Each one of these people had a name, had a face, had a story. There was a 70-year-old man who got a wall dropped on him. There was a 17-month-old baby who died 2 days ago. These are the stories that we're telling you about. It's not because we feel that there are not good things in this country. I mean, we have tarsiers and coconuts and white sands. I mean, shouldn't we help the Department of Tourism? But at the same time, we need imagination to put ourselves in the place of the people who are lost, who are dying, because they don't have voices. They don't have names. They no longer have faces. I haven't been doing human rights work for a very long time. I used to believe that the inside of every man is good, that every man had an instinct to do good things, that all you have to do is to say it, to call it out, to write down the names, show them the faces, and you'll have a phalanx of raging angels coming down and fighting it out. It's never enough. And that's not true. Because it only matters to people when it affects them. In Ondoy, everyone in Manila, everyone was a brother, everyone was a father. Every lost child was our lost child. Because we had a father, we had a brother who were affected in Ondoy. But how many people cared about the 35 of Pedring? And how many people were worried about the next storm that's going to happen a year from now? That's imagination. Put yourself in the place of the next person. What happens next year? How do we do that? When Maguindanao happened, people said it was unspeakable, that it was unimaginable. But you could imagine it. You knew of the chainsaw massacres that happened in Maguindanao years before that. People knew about the private armies. People knew that Ampatuan had been doing things for many, many years. Today, you have private armies in Abra, in Sultan Kudarat, in so many places where the same thing could happen. Even Totomo Dadato still has his own private army. So what do we ask now? Do we only care about the people who affect us? Does it have to take 58 people massacred for us to care? Is there a certain number, a certain limit where we say something is a story? I say no. We tell the stories that move us, that matter to us. During the Maguindanao massacre, I asked permission from my boss, Glenda. I asked to go to Maguindanao. Of course, she didn't let me. Of course, I went. So, I was in Maguindanao, on top of Ampatuan Hill. And they told us they weren't that worried about me because it was over. They had taken the bodies out, everything was done, and then all of a sudden they started counting again. We were already at 42. And then I was on the phone, talking to ANC. And then I started going 43, 44, 45. The bodies kept coming out. 46, 47, 48. We went all the way to 57. These are unimaginable horrors that you cannot forget and that you cannot imagine unless you look at how other people see it through their eyes. I wasn't always like this, probably because I graduated from a Catholic convent school. But there are things that you outgrow. And I'm glad that's one of those things. But let me show you something that we listened to in Maguindanao. I have a filmmaker who I work with. Her name is Kiri Dalena. And we flew to Maguindanao a year ago to do 58. And we wanted to try to talk to every one of the 58 families who were affected. We didn't manage to. We weren't able to. Documentary filmmaking is an expensive and underpaid business. So these are a few of the stories that we found most important. And I found it very odd that 1 year later, we were the first people to even talk to these families.
Muhammad Palawan, husband to Rahima Palawan, was aware of the dangers of the convoy's mission.
Kaya hindi naman pwede ang lalaking pumunta doon. Baka sakali ang mga babae hindi patulan, hindi patayin.
The Mangudadato supporters who joined the convoy are mostly from impoverished families dependent on the Mangudadato dynasty.
Kailangan niyang sumama doon dahil siya.
They are the mothers and fathers whose loyalty to the Mangudadatos now include offering up their children's lives.
Ang pangalan ng anak ko, si Zoraida Gagel Bernan.
Ako ang ina ni Zoraida Bernan. Yun ang anak ko nagbunso. Ang pangalan niya si Zoraida Bernan. Gagel Bernan.
Ako ang nanay ni Rowena, auntie. Yung anak ko na panganay. May dalawa siyang anak. Puro babae. Nasa akin siya.
Yung isa dalaga, pang-anim yan sa anak ko. Lailani, Balayman. Yung isa, Pinky Balayman.
Parang kanina lang sila namatay. Lalo na nag-aiyak itong mga anak niya. Ay, parang hindi ka makatulog, hindi ka makakain. Magtabi yung katawan nila.
Pinayakap. Kaya hindi ko kaya na mahiwala yung kapatid niya. Gusto ko yung magkayakap sila talaga. Pero mo kasaya-saya ng anak mo pagkalis niya, ganyan lang. Buisit na mga tao yan.
The families are some of the most neglected among the victims in the sudden burst of aid after the massacre. In 2009, the Office of the President, through the late presidential spokesperson Serge Remonde, announced to the public that Arroyo would grant each family at least 100,000 out of her social fund. All 4 of these supporter families claim to have received nothing beyond the aid from Toto himself.
Sa tulong ng gobyerno, ang nakuha lang namin yung bigay ni Governor sa amin na 20,000 na galing po mismo sa kay Governor Toto. Yun lang po ang natanggap namin.
The Aquino government appears to have taken little initiative to assist the families of victims on its own, especially the non-media members.
Well, we will certainly look into this concern because this was a commitment made by the previous administration. Then we are willing to revisit this proposal.
Ang pagkamatay ng anak ko na si Sureda Bernan ay talagang massacre. Wala pa nagawa na massacre na dito sa Maguindanao na katulad noon na inubos sila lahat na 57 ang namatay. Ngayon, kung hindi pagigising ang gobyerno natin, wala na tayong magagawa.
We like to thank the American people for that. The reason we do these things is not because we're good people. We're not. Or at least I'm sure I'm not. The reason I do this is because I'm afraid that if I stop telling the story, I'll forget. And these people need to be remembered. The same way the 35 of Pedring need to be remembered. The same way so many people whose names we've forgotten need to be remembered so that more people will not have the same things happening to them. Of course, you'll wonder how if you look at these bodies all the time, if you hear these stories, if you still believe. I think hope is a choice. That there is no such thing as hope when you expect something. The American who loses his job can expect to have welfare and services and care. But the Filipino, survival every day is an accident. For you to be here alive now, that's an accident in the Philippines, not dying. What I think we need to remember is this, that hope starts in the heart of darkness. That at the worst part, when you still believe, that means something can be done. The families of these victims, has anyone heard of Jonas Burgos? Has anyone heard of Mrs. Burgos? She has been around for 5 years, knocking at every door, going from the European Union to the Congress to every person she thinks can help her find Jonas. And if you ask her, does she think Jonas is alive? She'll say yes, because she chooses to believe it. But if you ask her, what if Jonas is dead? She'll say, thank God. Because at least he's in a better place than he could be right now. But people choose to hope. We tell stories not because we believe we can change the world. We tell stories on the possibility, the small probability, that one person will watch and be moved by that one story. Which is why, I'll show you one last clip.